We are so glad you're here.
That's
Thank you for
right.
listening. Yeah.
Honoree's going to wow us with her brilliance about book marketing, and we're going to talk about the marketing with my book strategies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is where it gets fun.
It does. This is chapter 9 if you guys are following along, which you should be by now because we've done all the videos. We've been saying, go get the book, read the book. This is You Must Market Your Book by Honoree Corder.
Yeah, I'm just curious if you're watching the video about chapter 9, do you have the book? Leave a message in the comments, please. I'd like
Yeah.
to know. Yeah.
I've got 2 copies of this book. I didn't even realize I had 2 copies of this book until the other day when I was moving my office, and I picked up one copy and then picked up another copy and said, oh, look, I'm like, I really do have 2 copies. Like I've been saying, I didn't believe
Only
myself.
two?
Yeah. Well, technically I have 3 because I do have one in my ebook file too.
That's
Um,
hilarious.
yeah,
Thank you.
but this one, it doesn't leave my desk. The other
Ah,
one is on my above my camera, which you can't see. There's a whole row of my nonfiction books, and of course, this is in there with all the other Honoree Corder nonfiction books that I have.
amazing. Thank you so much.
Yes, but this one doesn't leave my desk, so I had to buy 2 copies so that I had a working copy at all times that I could flip through, write in, take notes, everything.
I now have an upstairs Kindle and a downstairs Kindle, so I understand.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, I never thought about doing that. I guess I do that with my phone and my
Because
Kindle.
they sync. They sync, right?
Yeah.
Well, I have the mobile Kindle, also known as my iPhone.
There you go.
And then I have an upstairs and a downstairs.
You know, the thing I love about my mobile Kindle, like the mobile app versus my and I have a Kindle Scribe, so I can't like, I'm a little spoiled because it's like the
Yeah.
top of the line Kindle. Is that I love scroll reading, like being able to scroll. Ugh. So there's times when I'm like, I think I'm just gonna read on my phone, and then there's like a little guy on my shoulder saying, "But you have a scribe. You need to use the scribe. How are
Yeah.
you gonna take notes without the scribe?" Yeah. So anyway, um, in my paper copy of You Must Market Your Book, which stays on my desk that I religiously read, chapter 9 talks about marketing with your book and not necessarily marketing your book directly, right? And I love that you start chapter 9 of the book, paragraph 3. So if you guys are looking in the book, the subtle difference between the strategies of marketing your book and marketing with your book is that the latter centers solely on using your book to find new clients or engage new business, which means this thing becomes the tool to bring you business. You're not necessarily marketing the book, you're marketing with the book. And that in
Right.
turn markets the book. And I love that. I love that.
Me too.
Yes. But
Me too.
you go into some strategies, and the first one is always to have a copy of your book on hand. So what does that look like in your world?
Well, it looked like about 45 minutes ago, I was meeting with a prospective client, and in walks a friend of his. And he says, oh, you got to meet this guy. He needs to write a book. So the guy comes over, we stand up, they hug, we shake hands. What do you do? I help people to write, publish, and monetize their books. And he's like, you do? He's like, I want to write a book. And Eric said, that's what I told her. And I said, he said, do you have a business card? And I said, yep, I sure do. And I whipped out one of these puppies
Mm,
and I said, I actually don't have business cards. I don't have them printed anymore, but I'm happy to give you a copy of this book. Eyes as big as saucers. Really? That's amazing. So in that moment, opportunity presented itself and I walked through the door. I gave him a copy of my book. So now there's a copy of my book that is in motion. It is in the hands of someone who may or may not read it, may or may not write a book. That's not the point. The point is that when preparation meets opportunity, we're going to call that luck. You're ready. You've got a book on hand and you can pass it out to someone and help them with the contents of your book and potentially with what's available after they finish reading your book.
right. And so you keep copies of your book on hand. I think this is one of the things that really benefits self-published authors. We can get author copies at a
Yes.
relatively low price.
Yes.
If you're trad published, you obviously have to work out an author copy price with your with your publisher.
Yeah, that's generally in the contract. They're generally going
Right.
to be 50% of retail or something like that. So it's
Right.
still going to be an investment, but it depends on the job of the book, right? Whether you want I'll give someone a book that cost me a few dollars because they're going to buy something that has a comma in it. So the return on that investment is huge.
Right.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Not to date the episode here, but I think when I buy a copy of my book, it costs me just under $3. You know, it's crazy.
And what's your hourly consulting rate for,
250.
yeah? And what's your course price range?
Anywhere from 8,500 up to 50,000, depending on
Right.
the project.
So would you spend $3 to make $250? Yes, because that's an 8x return on your investment. Would you spend $3 to make $50,000? That's like an 800 million% increase return on investment.
Yeah.
It's just an interesting way of thinking, because I do get a lot of pushback from people who say, well, maybe you have the budget. They don't say it like that. Maybe Honore has the budget. Well, maybe they do a little bit.
Some people do.
Maybe you have the budget to pass out books, but I don't have the budget to pass out books. And ultimately, if you keep in mind that the number one way people discover a book is through a recommendation. Mm-hmm. So if you can plant the seed of a book, it's going to grow a tree, right, of book recommendations, right? So if you plant the seed of giving a book to someone, it's going to possibly come back to you in an hourly rate. So between $250 and $50,000. And then if you've made 8x your investment or 8 millionx your investment, that then allows you to invest some money back into the business, i.e. buy more books to plant into the world.
Right. Love it. And you actually kind of sprinkle a little extra special on this whole book exchange, because your next section talks about, and also have a Sharpie on hand at all times.
Correct. Well, no one really wants to get a book that from an author that isn't signed by the author.
Right.
The next question is always, can I pay you? No. Will you sign it? Yes. Having a Sharpie. And so maybe a little granular how I am prepared for all of this, because I think that's helpful. I have a tub in the back of my car and it has books in it. I have Sharpies in every one of my handbags. And I keep because I have more than one book, I keep a few copies of each book with me. Mm-hmm. And then I'll grab one or two based on what I'm walking into. Gotcha. Because Write Your First Nonfiction Book is very popular because everybody wants to write a book. It's smaller than You Must Write a Book. It's less expensive to purchase than You Must Write a Book. I can carry more copies of it. I'm going to give it away more often. But if I go to a networking event, I'll generally take 5 copies of Write Your First Nonfiction Book and 1 hardcover of You Must Market Your Book. Mm. If I meet someone who's an author, then I say, oh, hold please, I have a gift for you. And they're like, wow, this is amazing. The book that we're reading right now, I'm just passing that out to people that I meet that are already authors. Mm. And it's just one more way to make it discoverable.
I love that. It's so cool. I mean, and it is such a fun thing to do as an author, to give your book to somebody. It actually became like this thing where I keep a box of books in my truck and I keep a Sharpie in there. And I mean, I was in a coffee shop one morning with Tammy. We were like, we dropped the kids off at school, we're hanging out, and 2 seats down was this lady who owns a business, and she's talking to a potential client. And the whole time I'm thinking, I'm like, she'd be, the way she's handling her clients, she'd be really good at putting this into a course and teaching other people how to do this. So we went out to the truck and I grab a copy of my book and I sign it real quick in the inside. And I stuck a business card in it because I'm trying to get rid of my business cards because I don't need them anymore. Stuck it in there as like a bookmark, and I just walked in and said, hey, I don't want to interrupt your conversation here. I wanted to give this to you. I think you're awesome. Have a great day. And I got an email from her in like 4 days asking all the questions. So
love it. It's
amazing.
So next time, grab a copy of your book, sign it before you go into the coffee shop, and don't leave with it.
That's a good point.
Just leave one on the table whenever I go to a hotel for a networking event or I go to a coffee shop, there's always a shelf somewhere. So as I'm walking out, I'm just kind of like, I'm just going to leave this right here. Because you never know when someone's going to discover it. And I've had that happen. I've had people discover my book in a Starbucks,
Right.
you know, one of those newspaper baskets or whatever. Like I'll
Yeah.
just stick it in there whenever I go. And I've had, where did you find my book? You know, it's the weirdest thing. I was in a Starbucks and somebody had left it in the newspaper basket. And I'm like, I'm horrified. That can't be right.
Someone dropped that in a Starbucks. What?
Someone dropped that in a newspaper basket in a Starbucks? Like, what? Oh,
So
wait, that was me.
yeah, yeah, I did that. So is this the seeding your market?
Yeah. Yeah, this is one of the ways you can seed the market. I think about seeding the market as planting the seed of my book everywhere I find myself.
Hmm.
When I traveled a lot by airplane, I would never go on an airplane without 5 or 6 copies of my book. And if the person next to me was not someone I was having a conversation with, I would get off the plane and I just leave a copy of the book in the seat back pocket in front of me. And if you don't have a budget for books, you can also get postcards or bookmarks or something like that and just leave that. And that's a fraction of that investment, especially when you're getting started. I would leave them in, and still do on occasion. I don't travel as much as I used to, but I will leave them in hotels
Hmm.
on the table, sometimes in the room I'm staying in. If there's breakfast or there's a bar area or a lounge area, I'll leave it in there. If I'm in the Admirals Club at the airport, I'll leave it, I'll leave a couple of copies there. Um, Coffee shops. My most ninja act was to leave one in a bookstore where the book would go if it was ordered by the bookstore, and then let them not sell it to the person or sell it to the person. I remember I left one in the bookstore that was right down the street from where I lived, and they called and they were like, "We have your book here, but what do we do with it?" And I said, "Sell it." Sell it and I will bring you more. It's not a problem. There's more where that came from. It's thinking creatively about where you go,
Hmm.
where people might be stuck and need something to read, like the dentist's office, the doctor's office, the gym, wherever people are. And there's an opportunity for you to just leave behind a book with a blessing, right? Just, I hope this finds the right person. I hope this blesses the right person, benefits the right person. And then you just never know what's going to happen.
Hmm.
And when my mother-in-law and my father-in-law were still doing a lot of traveling post-retirement, I would give them a box of books. And
Oh,
I would say, okay, when you guys stop to get a sandwich or you stop to, use the restroom, just leave a book somewhere. And they were like, just leave the book. Like, just leave the book. Just leave the book, because they were traveling all over. They would go on a 13-state tour. And I was like, please, by all means, leave my book in states I haven't been to or haven't been to in a long time or may not get to in a while. And
hmm.
let's just see what happens. And they were willing participants in my book banditry.
So this is so much fun because my initial hesitation with this was my book was niched down to course creators. So I was like, man, what are the odds like that someone that's interested in course creation is gonna be interested in this? And then a second I thought, why is that even a thing in my mind?
Why is that even a thing? Because you never know. Someone's going to pick it up and go, my friend has a book they should turn into a course. I'll give them this book. If you have a willing participant, send a box of books to a friend in another place and have them run around.
Mm.
You know my friend Renee,
Yep.
and I gave Renee a bunch of teachers' books, The Miracle Morning for Teachers, and just said, go to the schools where you grew up and went to school. Go talk to the administrators and just give them copies of the books and see if they're interested in ordering the books. And guess what? When I go into my little Facebook group, I can see that there's a little like pod of people in that area where she lives
Oh.
that are, that have signed up for the Facebook group or have joined the email list. It's just, an interesting thing. So, I have some of your books. I'm not, it's not above me to go, oh, you have a book. I have a course book for you.
That's
There you
awesome.
go. Yeah.
That's so cool.
And it's a recommendation. So it seems self-serving, perhaps a little, for me to give away my books, obviously, but it's not self-serving at all for me to give away anyone else's book besides mine. So why would authors not work with each other to cross-pollinate and recognize each other and recommend each other's books?
Right. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. And it just opened my eyes to such a fun and giving way to kind of share your book. It feels so much less, there's a lot of people have a hang up about marketing. They're creatives. They haven't really gotten comfortable with the idea of selling their product yet. And
Yeah.
one of the ways I think you can easily start down the path of marketing your book without having to do something that does feel that way, if you're looking to ease into the pool and start, getting comfortable with getting the word out about your book, is to give it away. Like, it's okay to put it in those places and just walk away and let it live. Almost every coffee shop I went in town was like, "Hey, how can we help you?" And I'm like, "Hey, I've got this book. I'm a local author. Would you mind if I donated a copy to your book library? I see you guys over." They were like, "What?" They were like so excited. They're like, "Yeah, appreciate
Yes.
that."
Yes.
And then I'm
They
like, yeah, make a note to stop back by in a couple months in case somebody needed that copy, and they let them have it or whatever, and you can just replenish their stock. That's, who cares?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Because if someone took it, that means they might be interested.
yeah.
And you never know. I get an email when people who join my email list, I will ask them, how did you discover me?
Mm.
And there's sometimes I've been following your work for years. I read this book and then this book and then this book and then this book. And that very first book might have been discovered somewhere. And then they go, I really like that Lucas. What else did he write? What else has he got?
Never mind.
Oh,
I'm kidding.
only if
um,
it's the books where you kill people.
yeah. Well, yeah. Look, there's definitely, in that case, I'm grateful for the algorithms directing the right people in the right place.
Yeah, for sure.
um, So I guess one last question about this topic is that when you obviously have to have books to be able to donate the books, and in this chapter you talk a bit about like making sure that you order enough beforehand and that you order them in bulk. Now,
Yes.
is the ordering them in bulk, is that just for the benefit of saving some money with a bulk order?
No, not necessarily, because if you order them in bulk, unless you're ordering from a private printer, you're going to be ordering them print on demand from Amazon or Ingram Spark, and the cost per book does not go down the more books you buy. So that's not really a thing. I just want people to think about it abundantly.
Right.
When I order books, I'll order 50 copies. And then I have that moment where I'm like, what am I going to do with 50 copies? I better get rid of them, right? A book at rest is money at rest. A book in motion is money in motion. So when I have spent money on buying my books, even though it's a couple bucks per book, right? So I'm not going to spend more than $200, including tax and shipping, on 50 books,
Right.
but I've got to get them out. I've got to get them off my shelf, out of the box, and into the hands of people who can use them. I try not to keep books very long, and I keep them in an obvious place where I'm looking at the stack of books going, oh, I need to get those out of here because they're not helping an author who could use them. I actively am seeking prospective readers and offering copies of my book to them. Right. And so that is the question is, why order in bulk? Is so that you have more than you need when you need them. Because there's nothing like, well, I'm going to order 5 books and then I'm going to protect them like they're the Holy Grail, right? I'm just going to hold on to these. Okay, now I have 4. Now I have 3. I'm starting to have a panic attack, right? I'm starting to my
Feel the
heart's beating,
pressure.
right? I'm feeling the pressure. If you have an abundance of books, then it's just a game. It's like, where can I put these books? Who can benefit from them? And then when I have friends that go on trips, I'm like, hey, can you take this and just stick it somewhere? Just see the market for me. And I'm not tied to it coming back. I'm not worried about that 8x or 8 billion X return on my investment. I just know that the book's getting out there, and the more it's out there, the more it's coming back to me multiplied. And that's my goal.
Love it. Love it. Well, it was funny. I was talking to somebody about bulk ordering books, and they own a small press. And they said, yeah, we didn't realize we could save money on bulk orders. And I said, oh, wow. how many do you have to order? And they were like 1,000 or more from Ingram. And I was like, oh, wow. And immediately I thought about your story about when you had ordered a bulk order of your books and they were all delivered to your house.
Yes, I ordered 5,000 books and they were delivered. It was like the truck arrived and I knew it had arrived because I heard the backup beeping. Beep, beep,
Oh my
beep.
gosh.
Oh, okay, here we go.
That's
20,
wild.
24 boxes, 22 boxes. I don't even remember, something in the 20s. And the guy just rolled up the pallet. Boom, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Now what do I do? Well, those books were sold because the minute I ordered 5,000 books to get the lowest price, it was 5,000 books for $4,000.
Oh, wow.
And so it was the Better Business size book, right? The skinny, the tiny one.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, well, those kids I had already sold 5,000 and 5,000 more and was on my third order of 5,000.
Wow.
So then I just had to direct them.
Because you were doing direct sales of the book at that point in bulk?
Yeah.
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 So there's, and I asked that question for a very specific reason, because I think some people are nervous about, okay, well, if I order a bunch of books and I don't end up giving away as many as I thought, but I bought them in larger quantities so that I could be ready, what can I do with these books? You can direct sell them if you feel like you have too many to do what you need to do.
Right.
As far as
when I say order in bulk, I mean order 25 or 50 or 100, right. Not don't order 5,000 books if they're not spoken for.
Right. Yeah.
That was an early amateur mistake that I quickly was able to compensate for. Because I was taking the advice of Mark Victor Hansen, who said, do 7 things every day to market your book. So I got right on it.
Right on it.
I started dialing for dollars, as they say, right? But in retrospect, I wouldn't order 5,000 copies of Write Your First Nonfiction Book and then attempt to sell them. I would say, okay, I can order 5,000 for $4,000, which now that's not a real number, right? It's more like 5,000 for $25,000. Because 20 years have passed. Not really, probably 5,000 copies for $10,000, right? Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't spend $10,000 without knowing that I was going to make $200,000 back. I would be pre-selling them before I would buy them.
Right. Perfect. Well,
yeah.
look at
I made
the
mistake, so you don't have to.
There you go. Well, I appreciate that. I know other people watching this and listening to this will appreciate that. So, Honore, thank you so much for sharing your insights into marketing with your book. We have 2 more chapters left in this run, so that we can wrap up the You Must Market Your Book series. Guys, if you haven't watched the previous episodes of these videos or listen to the previous episodes on the podcast, please go back and listen. They're in order. We intentionally didn't break up this series so that you could listen to them in order. And it's just wildly fascinating and insightful. Honore, as always, thank you so much for sharing that with us. Guys, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, push all the buttons. Check out Honore. Check us out at EBMC, the Empire Builders MasterClass.com. If you want more insight into Honore and her wonderfulness, check out honorecorridor.com. And
checks in the mail.
Checks in the mail.
Literally, there's a check in the mail to you right now.
Okay.
Not for that. I have to put another check in the mail, but thank you so much.
It's accompanied by a bill. I'm kidding. No. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Honore. We'll see you guys in the next episode.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Lucas.